Good morning. Welcome to our Sunday service for May 17th of 2020. Today's service, we will have opening remarks, the ringing of the kancho, sutra chanting of Junirai, followed by reading of the daily creed of Jodo Shinshu by our Abba group, a Dharma message, and then closing remarks. Thank you very much.
Entrusting in the vow of the Buddha and reciting the sacred name,
I shall proceed through the journey of life with strength and joy.
Revering the light of the Buddha and always reflecting upon my imperfect self,
I shall diligently attend to my life's tasks with gratitude.
Following the teachings of the Buddha, hearing and understanding the proper path,
I shall help spread the true teachings.
Rejoicing in the compassion of the Buddha,
I shall respect and aid others, working for the benefit of society.
Please join me in Gasho. Namo Amida Butsu.
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 Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida.
Namandav, 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 namandav. Good morning. I hope everyone is doing well, both physically and mentally. Being in a situation where you feel you're not in control of yourself and your actions can be very trying. However, if we can mindfully go through all aspects of our lives, can help us not only get through difficult times, but also continuously help us on a path to end suffering. And that path to end suffering and the ending of suffering are encompassed in the third and fourth of the Four Noble Truths. However, it's difficult, driven by our egos and filled with greed, anger, and ignorance, to always remain mindful. Please join me in Gasho. Even if a great fire were to fill the universe of 1,000 million worlds, you should pass through it to hear the sutra, to arouse joyful faith, to uphold and chant it, and to practice in accordance with its teachings. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda, namanda, namanda. So this passage that I just read is from the larger sutra on Amitatayas and was referred to by Shinran Shonin, the founder of our Jodo Shinshu tradition, to help explain how Nembutsu practice comes from the primal vow. This specific passage is saying that we must see through the emotions that arise within all of us in order to see the true teaching and focus our attentions on that teaching. I'd like to start my Dharma message today with a story I'm sure many of you are familiar with. It's sometimes credited to being a traditional Tanzanian folktale. And the version I'll present today is titled, How the Monkey Saved the Fish. During the rainy season, the rivers had broken their banks. There were floods everywhere, and animals were all running into the hills to escape the floodwaters. Unfortunately, the floods came so fast that many were drowned. The monkeys, however, were able to climb up into the treetops and were able to stay above the rising waters. As some were resting in the treetops, they looked down at the water, where the fish were swimming and gracefully jumping out of the water, as if they were the only ones enjoying this devastating flood. One of the monkeys turned to his friend and said, Look at those poor creatures. They're going to drown. Do you see how much they're struggling in that water? Oh my, said the other monkey. What a pity. They must have had trouble escaping because they seem to have no legs. I think we must do something. Let's go lower in these trees so that we may reach down and help them out of the flood. So these kind monkeys did just that. They started catching the fish, but were surprised how much these creatures seemed to resist their help. But one by one, they brought the fish out of the water and put them carefully into the highest branches of the trees. After a short while, there were many fish nestled carefully in the branches, but lying motionless. One monkey turned to his friend and said, "See how tired they are? But now they're sleeping and resting. Had it not been for us, my friend, these poor creatures without legs would have drowned." The other monkey said, "I think they were trying to escape from us because they could not understand our good intentions. But when they wake up, they will be very grateful that we saved them." Most of the times when I've heard the story related, it's usually done to show that compassion alone is not enough. That without wisdom, the monkey's good intentions and compassion for these legless creatures resulted in these fish dying. However, I'd like to take a slightly different look at this tale today. I'd mentioned before telling the story about the difficulties of being mindful. Now, being mindful can be described as being able to see through the clouds of emotions that we feel from our experiences and see the truth of what really is happening. One thing that prevents us from being able to do this can be compared to a term that's primarily used in the study of physics. That term is a frame of reference. Now, in physics, a frame of reference is an arbitrary set of axes within the position or motion of an object is described and physical laws formulated. So that's the really technical explanation. Now, how does this apply to the monkeys? So Merriam-Webster's dictionary was always very helpful with this because they provided a second definition for frame of reference, which is a set of ideas, conditions, or assumptions that determine how something will be approached, perceived, or understood. The monkey's frame of reference was that all animals are similar to them. They breathe air, they live on dry land, they should have legs. When they saw these fish in the water, they assumed the fish were in trouble because if the monkeys were in the water, in the flood water, they would have been in trouble. So the monkey's frame of reference led them to believe that the animals in the floodwaters needed help, and out of compassion, they did try very hard, and it took a lot of effort to try and help them. All of us have our own personal frames of reference. These frames determine how we perceive the world around us. What causes us not to be mindful and see the true nature of things just as they are is because we place ourselves at the center of our frame of reference. How many times have we all been heard and admonished, "You know, the world does not revolve around you"? I've been on the receiving and giving end of that plenty of times. Our selfish nature drives us to see things as they relate to us as individuals. And throughout our lives, we use a frame of reference that is continuously centered on ourselves. However, we know in Buddhism, as we're taught, there is no self. Therefore, there can never be an unchanging frame of reference centered on something that is not permanent. And ourselves, with no self, are not permanent. Always changing, always being affected by causes and conditions. Then let me go back to one word in the physics technical definition of frame of reference. And that word that was in there that I want to highlight is arbitrary. A frame of reference is arbitrary. That means it's based on either a random choice or a selected personal whim. Our frames of reference are usually based on our own personal whims to put ourselves at the center of the universe. And this is why everything that we see is perceived as does it affect me. And shortly before he passed away, Professor Stephen Hawking finished an updated revision to his most popular book, A Brief History of Time. That was in the year 2017, just before he passed away. In this revision, he addressed the new discoveries that happened in the 30 years since the original publication of his book, which was in 1988. And near the end of the appendix of this last edition, Professor Hawkins wrote the following. Copernicus first suggested in the 16th century that we are not placed in the center of even our own universe. Yet we are still struggling to accept how vanishingly small a fragment of reality our familiar world represents. This was Professor Hawkins' reminder to us that even in the highly technical world of theoretical physics, we cannot place ourselves at the permanent center of our frame of reference. And furthermore, he's also saying that we cannot limit our frame of reference to only what we can see. If we do, we will remain blind to the true nature of life, the universe, and everything. Thank you for your attention today. Everyone, please stay healthy and safe. And again, join me in Gasho as we reflect on the larger sutra. Even if a great fire were to fill the universe of 1,000 million worlds, you should pass through it to hear this sutra, to arouse joyful faith, to uphold and chant it, and to practice in accordance with its teachings. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda, 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 Namanda. We hope you enjoyed our online service for this week. We hope that everybody stays healthy and safe through the coming week, and we hope that you will join us online again. For those who were curious to what about my comment right after the quote from Dr. Hawking, yes, I would like to share that the answer is 42. And for those who don't quite understand that strange reference, you can Google Douglas Adams and his books. The small Komoboko board Butsudan that was beside me during the Dharma message was one of the crafts that were made in Dharma school class by one of my children when they were growing up. And hopefully this is something that we can continue on showing different places and different things. Again, thank you for your attention, and everybody have a safe and healthy week.